Call to order the regular board meeting for February for USD 464. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Regarding the agenda, I would like to move that we amend the agenda. Jim Carlson won't be here, Mr. Manningham won't be here, so I'd like to strike items 1.4 and 1.8. Is there a
Second?
second? All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, Stephanie voted yes. 5-0. Agenda approved. Go into the presentations. We would put Mr. Thompson. Is that right?
Right, Tom.
Or
Yeah, and it's Brad must go. This is in reference, of course, to the Beatty field lighting project that we've been working on for the last 2 to 3 months. And I asked Brad from Musco Lights just to be here to answer questions, basically. We've gone through this quite a bit. We did get approved by Aqualis, the national bidding company, about 2 weeks ago. So Lori Wilson and I worked on that. And then this is the quote that you have in front of you from Musco that includes either the reno, which would be without the new poles. And then there's the second, the light structure, football with track and home bleachers is including the new poles. And then I've talked to both the AD and the high school principal about this, and Forrest actually, I think was part of that, the speaker brackets on what was the advantages of having the poles made with brackets that would fit our current system instead of trying to outsource that some other way. One thing I was asked to do, just so you know that, and Brad can allude to some of the timeline questions. You know, I think there might be in the bidding or the bid itself. One thing I was going to say that I think the board is aware that the football field lights are right at the end of their life. They just are, and I don't know the exact age of them. 90s at some point, somewhere in there. And you know, we've had for the last 2 years a lot of trouble just making sure they would turn on before ball games. So what we generally have done is gone down there at 2 o'clock, 2:30, turned them on 2 or 3 times just to get as many lights lit up as we could. And that's been a pretty common occurrence. This spring, and Brad can allude to this, I don't know what the exact timeline is if this is approved, but he can address that. But we do have 3 track meets this spring that lights would be needed at some point later in the evening. And then we have 8 home soccer games this year. Plus, I just wanted you also to know there's a pretty good likelihood that we're going to host the 4A state regional track meet. We were asked to last year, but because of COVID, they told us that they would postpone that a year. And that's a big feather in the hat of Tonganoxie, because we do have a very nice track, but those things do run until about 10:30 at night. And that's May, let's see, the date on that I think is May 21st. So I think everybody knows the ins and outs of this project, and this would be a capital outlay project. And I think that's important to know, and we feel that it's with, however you guys decide to go, we could make it work within our capital outlay. So I think what I'd like to do is, if anybody has questions for Brad, this is a good time to ask. Delivery time, all those kind of things. I'm not sure if anybody has any, but.
I mean, I might just jump in on that timeline, like if approved tonight, or what's the, I guess, the general installation process? I mean, it is wintertime as well, but kind of.
Right. Well, first off, thanks for having me.
and I appreciate that. As far as timelines go, the one thing I want everybody to understand is we do not have any of this stuff built. We don't have a factory that has this stuff built. Every one of these projects is built individually for each field because each field is so much different. A 3-foot move changes how we do things. So it's 4 to 6 weeks from the day that we get final approval and sign off that everything is good on what we're doing. That means what we're going to do, if you go ahead and approve this thing, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to set up a meeting with the contractor that's going to install it, which would be Capital Electric. We would meet on site one more time, which we've done already. Final approval for everything, make sure locations are good, voltage and phase and those kinds of things are good. Once that final sign-off done, is 4 to 6 weeks to get the material on site. Once the material is on site, what we tell everybody is it's 2 to 3 weeks. Capital Electric will not take 3 weeks unless they're bombarded with bad weather or something weird happens. I did talk to their guy today on the way here, and he can work around waiting to take the old poles down until the new poles are up, but he right away, when I was talking to him, said, now I hope everybody's okay. If there's a window of opportunity and we can get those up before the soccer and not cause an issue and give everybody an opportunity for lights, we sure want to do that. So they're going to be looking to get the poles in, get the bases, get the poles up, and get the lights up as fast as they can. Then they'll demo out the old stuff, if in fact you do the new poles.
Understand. And that's, any other members?
My other question was just for clarification, the warranty on with new poles as opposed to a reno is important, I think.
The warranty on a reno is you're going to get 10 years on the materials only, on our materials. You're not going to get guaranteed light levels for an exuberant number of years or anything like that. The warranty on the new poles, 25 years. That includes parts, pieces, labor, cranes, lifts, anything we need to repair our system. You're going to get guaranteed light levels. Your light levels will stay at the level that you're buying and never drop below that number, that guaranteed number for 25 years. Uniformities will also be guaranteed. Uniformities are basically the smoothness of the field. So when you look out there, it's going to look like somebody painted it with a brush that had light on it. You're not going to see those bright spots and dull spots. We call them cool spots, as it were. So the bottom line is you can eliminate that line item from your budget for 25 years. Everybody in this room is smart enough to know that we gauge that based on something. I want you to know moving forward that at 25 years your warranty will end, but that warranty is based on X number of hours of usage. It's based on 400 hours of usage a year. I'm telling you right now, there's not a chance in this world you're going to use that field 400 hours a year. I've got all the numbers for Kansas, it doesn't happen. So your warranty will end at 25 years, but the reality of it is your light system that you have, you've probably got something that's going to be good for 35 or 40 years. And at that point, when it diminishes and goes down in value because it's LED, it's not a lamp that you change, it's a series of diodes that are in that fixture. They're going to diminish, but they're going to diminish to a very small degree. So, and the foundations on that are such that if I told you went into the specifics of the foundations and you're a concrete person, you'd go, oh my Lord. So it's long-term, long-range, safe, guaranteed light levels, and no cost to you moving on down the road. So,
Thank you.
What about in terms of, have we validated that the existing wiring is appropriate? Are we going to pull?
Capital Electric has looked at all that, and there's a lot of that that's going to be new. There's some of it they're going to reuse, but some of that's going to be a little bit of it because they put some of that in here just a couple of years ago. So the guys that are putting this in, not only are they from Tallanoxie, but they know every step and what's going on around that field. So they have looked at all that, yes.
And we feel really comfortable that there's
Yes, sir.
not going to be any impact to the artificial turf or any of the.
Okay.
Just clarification. Sorry, I can't see you with the. Wait. Whoops.
Sorry about that.
So, I just wanna get a clarification on the lighting levels, cause right now it just says in here, guaranteed light levels of 40-foot panel uniformity of 2.2 to 1. So is that guarantee not applicable, if you don't have the poles? Or is that guaranteed for the 10 years if you reuse the existing?
You would get 40-foot panels on the field with those other poles. We're not gonna guarantee the light levels for that period because we don't trust those poles as much as we trust ours.
Okay.
Is
All
the
right.
safe, is the easiest way to say it.
And I haven't gotten an answer, and to say we don't know is an okay answer. I don't know that anybody's looked at it, because what I'd like to know is, based upon the original design with those halogens, because we know right now that whatever it was originally designed for, we know we are not getting that today, right? So there's two parts to the question. One, is this consistent or better than what we believe the original was designed for, and how does that compare? And then where do we think we're at now? So if I get asked by a patron, hey, why do we spend this money? I'm like, okay, well, you know, what you were looking at on a typical Friday night was X foot candles. You saw the shadows, and the uniformity was, you know, maybe something like, I don't know, 10 to 1 or something like that. And what we're going to get is 40. Like, what's the delta in improvement?
There's a few things to answer there. Yes, your numbers, I believe, are going to go up. The look is going to definitely go up. I don't want to bore everybody here, but there's something called color temperature with lamps. On a scale of 1 to 10,000 with metal halide, which you had before, 4,200 on that scale is where you were. And I know numbers are just numbers and arbitrary of wherever they are, but on that scale, that puts you in like a yellow or an orange or a real warm kind of look. The LED fixtures are going to be 5,700 on that scale, which moves them closer to 10,000, obviously, which is like daylight. It's going to have a bright, white, clear, clean, blue look, if anything. The reality of it is it's probably going to look like you've got way more than what you bought. As an example, I've got school systems that have 50-foot candle HID systems, and they have recently bought a 40-foot candle LED system. And if I took everybody in this room to those fields and showed them, I bet everything I have that you would choose the 40-foot candle system. As a matter of fact, you probably would choose 30-foot candles LED over that HID just because of the look.
Okay.
Another way to explain it is that coaches and players alike tell us that the turf pops more, the uniforms pop more, the helmets pop more, the color. It's just a much different feel and a much different look.
Yeah,
The other thing you're going to get on this system is, while we reduce the spill and glare, which is off-site light and that sky glow,
Right.
there are also going to be 2 fixtures on every pole that will be reverse aim. Those fixtures are called ball tracker fixtures. They're upside down for a reason, to illuminate the underside of the object. So playability is going to go off the charts for where you are now, because if the ball is punted above the pole, you're not going to lose it, because that's what those lights are for. And then they also enhance coaches' visual, fans' visual, everybody else's. So.
Okay. And you know, it has good red, because I know red is a tough thing tougher for LEDs and lights to, as far as, what is it, CR10, 9, 13, or whatever. Is it?
Yeah, our number there is 75, which is the same number we're using for NFL stadiums, NBA stadiums, Major League Baseball, the Olympics, and those sorts of things. So
Okay, good.
basically, you're getting the same fixture that, to a degree, that we would put in a Division I college football stadium in many cases. You're just not buying as many of them.
Any other questions?
And I don't mean to instant on, instant off, you don't have that now, so what Lauren was talking about, that coming out and turning them on and off, you'll be done with that. Instant on, instant off, you can turn it on 5 minutes before the game and you're good to go, and you'll also have dimming on that system. So you can dim it from your full load. When you turn it on, it'll go to full power. With a button on your phone, you can hit, or the controls on whoever's doing it, you can go to medium, basically telling everybody, hey, we're done, it's time to go home, and then you can go to low, give them another indication it's time to go home. Or if you have a little guy field game, or a little guy event, or a graduation event, or something that you want to do where you don't need full power, you can then go down to that medium power and more efficiently use your lighting system.
Okay.
Any other questions on the light bid while we, Mr. Thompson here? If not, we appreciate your coming out and information, and we'll be voting on it later, and I'm sure Lauren will be keeping you posted on that.
Thank you very much for having me.
your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me first, by the way. See you
All right.
later.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll jump over to Dustin and Kevin. I know Dustin's on the road, and Kevin is calling in as well to help out. Karen, Chris, and I met with Lauren and Dustin last week. And I guess I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you kind of go over how things are looking and some prospects for us.
Yeah, Jim. Hey, good evening, everyone. Nice to visit with you. And am I on video, or can you
Yeah.
see my screen if I share it with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So a couple things. Again, just really an update from our conversation here. Has been more than 6 months ago, but I think we were talking to the board about a year ago at this time about a refinancing, and at that time, obviously things in the middle of March of 2020 kind of fell apart from a market perspective, and so we kind of put the refinancing we had talked about on hold. Obviously, we've been monitoring things for savings improvement, and certainly in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen that happen in the marketplace. And I had a conversation with staff last week and gave them an update in terms of where we are currently. And as we've all discussed before, we always consider the refinancing and the concept of how does it impact our long-range financial plan. And so I'm going to put on the screen that financial plan.
We also have a handout, Dustin, which
Oh, you do? Okay.
I believe.
You have that mill levy analysis?
I think so, yes.
Let me bring it up here. I brought paper copies, but I do think, we have a copy of the resolution.
Yes.
Sorry. I think everyone may have got emails
Okay.
out. If you have your computers, I think Lauren sent out the mill levy analysis of the 3 pages, but, because it's gonna be pretty small, but if you wanna hit on the high spots.
It is. So again, I won't go through all the numbers like we've done before, but again, it's just trying to, again, we're trying to make sure that any sort of refinancing that we consider aligns with what our financial plan is. And certainly in this case, it's no different, right? So again, status quo, right? Something that we've looked at before that's been updated for budget information for 2021. So new state aid figures, new valuation figures. Again, showing that the mill levy is being maintained at 23.14 mils, if I recall correctly. And so then the second page really just provides an illustration of, okay, what happens if we refinance? What does this mean to us from a financial perspective? And again, it's really what we're doing is we're improving our fund balances, right? So again, what fund balance means to us as a school district is it gives us future capacity for several things. Mill levy management, right? So in future years, maybe we can lower our mill levy. In future years, we could probably start retiring our bonds earlier than what we had planned. With growth that may be, again, 10 years down the road, it probably lends itself to capacity for future projects if that growth does happen. Or kind of a combination of all three. And I know we've had that discussion about the timing of when can we drop our mills or when can we pay off our bonds early. This refinancing just helps enhance that process. And again, something that we look at every single year during the budget process as new information becomes available to us. And again, especially as the project comes to an end here, we'll be having further conversations about what happens with some money that's not spent on the project. What should we do with it? How does it impact our mill levy? Again, so the refinancing just kind of further enhances it and obviously puts the district in a better long-term financial position. If you can read this, there's some very bottom left of the screen, but I'm actually gonna put on there a summary. You can see that. So again, this is what's changed from a year ago. Again, rates have improved to the extent that it probably makes sense to look at other bond issues besides just the 2013 bonds that we talked about a year ago. And if we look at both the 13 bonds, the 14 bonds, and the 19B bonds, the average rate of all those bonds is around a 3.22%. And then the estimated rate after refinancing is a 1.83%. And certainly, obviously, you know, interest rates can change, they do on a daily basis, but based upon a 1.83%, the total savings is right around that $1.6 million total savings to the school district after all expenses. And again, so the other thing that we look at is just the present value savings percentage, and what we've talked about before is exceeding that 3%. In this case, we're nearly at the 6% level. So with that, I think it aligns with what our objectives are. Again, we're trying to put ourselves in a better financial position, which saves us interest costs, which obviously then gives us future ability management issues. From a timing perspective, obviously, interest rate sensitivity is important here. From a timing perspective, here it is. Over. So from a timing perspective, with your consideration tonight, and again, this is a very comparable document. I'll have Kevin kind of walk through what this document is here in a minute, but a very comparable document to what the board approved a year ago when we authorized the refinancing process to start. We'd like to put the district into the market as soon as possible, and it could be as early as the week of the 20th. Actually, it could be as early as next week if everything aligns correctly. We need to be able to lock in interest rate. But this process, this document tonight just allows that process to proceed. We have the preliminary official statement which will be completed here in the next day or two, and we have the bond rating call which will happen this week as well. So the intent obviously would be to secure interest rates as soon as possible for the school district. Once those rates are secured, we'd come back at the March 8th meeting, unless there's a special meeting beforehand, but the March 8th meeting to approve all the legal documents related to the sale of the bonds, and we close on the bond issue the end of March.
You want to just touch, I mean, maybe on, I mean, there's two scenarios there. You had the first, the 1.6 you were talking about was, that's just keeping the average maturity the same. Yeah, I mean, there was the other second scenario was even shortening the debt by approximately a year and increasing our savings like another roughly 300,000 or so. I guess I assume that's still kind of into play.
You know, Jim, it is. So again, I think what we look at here is, you know, what are all the options available to us? So again, option number 2 in that Milovy scenario really just what we call uniform savings, which just means we take equal annual savings over the life of the bonds that are being refinanced. You can see what the impact of the fund balance is there, right? So our fund balance grows to nearly $1 million every single year, which is a healthy fund balance and an appropriate fund balance given the amount of the annual payment. The third page, I call this more of an accelerated, right? So we're trying to accelerate and pay off bonds early. In this case, we're trying not to exceed what our current payment is. So, for example, if our annual savings is, let's say, $100,000, rather than taking that annual savings, we're just going to pay off $100,000 of principal more each year. So our overall payment stays the same, but by doing so, we're able to cut a year off and pay off our bonds a year earlier than planned. And by doing that, the savings is a little bit closer to $2 million, about $1.9 to $2 million range. So either of those scenarios, I think there had to be some decision tonight in terms of which alternative would be appropriate. I know that when we spoke here a week ago, I think there's gonna be an ability for the district to repay bonds earlier, primarily on the 2019 bond, so on the high school's project bond. At some point in time, those are the bonds that we will want to put ourselves in a position to prepay. So in the meantime, it would not be inappropriate to leave the term of the existing bonds the same, which would be the scenario which is on page number 2.
Okay. I know, yeah, I know we talked about the 2 different scenarios and I know there's some resolution thing. I just wanted kind of everybody to have the same information and we can probably iron out a decision tonight. And I appreciate your kind of bringing back up the possibility of the 2019 for the high school down the road and kind of saving, I guess, saving some powder. Reason for that.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, so yeah, feel free to discuss tonight, and again, just, you can have Lauren let me know which alternative the board decides to proceed with.
All right. Is there any questions from board members? I know we kind of sent some of this out. We pulled together a meeting kind of quick and started the balls rolling because it seemed like we need to take advantage of this opportunity at least. But any other thoughts or questions? I know Dustin has several other meetings. I think he's got a few other clients in the same situation here, so I appreciate you getting in, taking time for us. Do we want Kev? I mean, if you need to drop off, I don't know. Was it Kevin? Were we gonna? Do we need any update on? I guess you prepare the resolution.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Kevin Limpy from Gilmore Bell. Nice to be with you all again. Yeah, happy to sort of hit the highlights on the resolution. Mind you, this can be relatively brief tonight, but there are really 2 key things that you're authorizing with this resolution tonight. And Dustin really mentioned it, but first of all, is you're authorizing the preparation and release to investors of the preliminary official statement, which is the offering document that will be used to market the bonds to investors and is subject to all the federal securities regulations and guidelines. So you're authorizing that process getting underway. And then, really the key thing is authorizing execution of a bond purchase agreement prior to your next meeting. And that provides that flexibility for Dustin and his team to go market the bonds and for the board president to execute that purchase agreement that'll lock in the interest rate, again, prior to your next board meeting. But tonight's resolution is really a key step to delegate that authority to execute the bond purchase agreement, because assuming the process goes as planned, like Dustin outlined, and the district's in the market the next couple of weeks, and the bond purchase agreement is signed, we come back to the board for the official statutory action at your March meeting with a signed purchase agreement with the expectation it would be approved at that night. So again, really a key step to get the ball rolling tonight and proceed towards the market. So those are the highlights really tonight for get the process started officially, but happy to stand for any questions you might have.
I don't have any. I mean, I think it looks like the same resolution we had before. I mean, I think we did talk with Dustin that we approved something like this a year ago, but given the time that went by, we thought we got to revisit and get the board to officially approve it again before we go out to market. So, anything else from any other board members? Questions? Karen was on that call. I don't know if hopefully we touched on everything. Anyone? All right, I see no other questions. Thank you, Kevin and Dustin, for calling in and walking us through all that. We appreciate it, and we'll be following up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do I need to do anything to drop? No.
No, but now we have Aaron.
All right. Next on the agenda, Aaron with Husky and Associates.
Good evening. I'm going to share my screen here with you guys. So thanks for letting me join virtually. Little road condition issue out here. So can you all see my report
have copies of this, don't we?
Yeah.
So we've got this, each of us on our agenda, so
Okay.
we should be able to
Great.
follow along.
Okay. So starting with the budget, everything is looking in really good shape for the bond project. I made some updates here to the contingency forecast. Overall, the GMP amount and total bond funds is holding tight. So the district GMP contingency within McCown Gordon's current contract. The current amount in there is $884,000, and forecasting that down to $800 for some change orders that we currently know about and have not been fully priced out or executed yet. Contingency, used a little bit of that this month, and that was really for some work for DLR to look into some of these project enhancements that will be presented at the special board meeting on the 22nd. And so just forecasting there some potential additional use of that, some design funds for those enhancement items should they be accepted after that special board meeting. So overall, the other district project contingency and facility improvement allowance, not forecasting any use of those at that time, and pending that future board meeting should we elect to include some of those updates to the project. So overall, budget is looking really good shape. I wanted to just take a minute to respond. I think last month we talked a little bit about the status of the contingency usage and the overall progress in the project. So ran some quick numbers, and Drew, I think this was your question last month, but so the project overall is 15% complete based on months of the total project duration. Phase 1, which is the Learning Center portion of that project, would be about 30% complete. So construction contingency, which is what McCown Gordon controls, they have used 3% of their overall construction contingency. So used 3%, the project is 15% complete. The owner contingency in the GMP, so this $1 million that was in there, there's been 12% of that used, but the majority of that was for the CTE HVAC, which was really a scope add and not really an unforeseen risk use of contingency. If you take that out, only 3% of that $1 million has been used for unforeseen changes. And then soft costs with the small amount used this month, that is 2%. 2% of that has been used. So overall, considering that we are getting past some of the more riskier stages of the project, it's in pretty good shape as you relate it to percent complete of the overall project. So any other questions or comments on that?
Nope, not for me. Thank you for pulling that together.
Did you hear that?
Yes, first. What?
Oh, he said thank you.
Is there a question?
No, I think there's just a delay,
Oh.
so I'm sorry.
All right, so and getting the schedule, substantial completion date, so no changes here. Still targeting Learning Center completion by December 2nd of this year. Weather days in January was, we were good and below the contractual amount. There were 2 weather days used and 6 contractual days allotted for January. February might be a different story, with our first couple weeks here being a little challenging. But we'll keep an eye on that. We talked about some milestone dates here. Key deliverables, we have the special board meeting on the 22nd, so project design enhancement costs, putting together the information for that and the costs associated with some of those things for delivery to the board on the 19th ahead of that meeting on the 22nd. And then a few months out that we're starting into the furniture, detailed furniture design for the new building and targeting the acceptance agreement, which is the trigger to order that furniture, will be due by July 9th to get everything delivered in time. So they talk about some of these key milestone dates. Schedule-wise, the project's tracking really well. While haven't reflected it in the substantial completion dates, they're really about a week or two ahead of schedule on some of the critical path items like steel. So that's good at this stage because it gives us a little cushion for things like weather and changes. So currently scheduled to be topping out with the steel around March 22nd. And we'll be starting some of the exterior sheathing work. So, starting to see actual solid walls go up around the building here towards the first part of March. There will be a lot more information forthcoming, hopefully to present at the next month's board meeting regarding the summer site work that's going to happen. We've started to have some conversations with Mark Farrar and the high school administration about scheduling and coordinating access around some of the summer activities. So that work is ongoing. And then should have the Learning Center building dried in by July. So McCown-Gordon continues to have a great safety record on site. So far, no injuries reported or lost time accidents to date. All right, jumping into some outstanding issues or changes. Just kind of want to start this out with a little fun information on some of the things that the project team has been working with the administration on, and connections with the Tonganoxie High School and students. So Jason Gaskey was a 1996 Tonganoxie High School graduate, and he is the head detailer for Edwards McDowell through the HVAC subcontractor on this project. So he's kind of been getting engaged on their shop drawings and coordination, and is just really excited to be working on the project. So I don't know if any of you know him or knew him from around. And then also McCown is working with the high school and the CTE welding program. They're going to be providing them some materials for a building project, and also coordinating some tours, student tours, during the steel erection phase of the project. And they're also working on setting up some trade partner apprenticeship program tours for any interested students at the high school. And then I've been working with Mark to find some dates to do a Women in Construction and Design presentation to students that are interested, and it would involve the team members from DLR and McCown that are on the project as well. So I'm really excited about that. So lots of good stuff going on. spring break, there'll be a little bit of work going on in spring break in the high school, building a barrier wall to demo the stairwell at the west end at the connection to the new learning center. And there'll also be crews in the east campus and west campus doing some hangers and conduit install, getting ready for getting out ahead of some of the summer work, renovation work that'll be happening. So I talked a little bit about parking lot work in the summer, and there'll also be interior renovations. The hallways around the TPAC and the existing gym, and that'll all be work to prep for infrastructure switchover before the 1960s East building is demoed at the end of the year, or first next year actually. So next item here, I just want to talk a little bit about early procurement of construction materials and equipment. There's been a little volatility in the market around steel and electrical gear and some other items that McCown Gordon has been looking into and trying to keep track of, and just preparing for the ability for them to possibly order some of those things early and store them on site, possibly in some Connex storage containers. And we've just been talking through how those will be stored and making sure that all the boxes are checked for, liability and replacement and all that. So I don't know if there's any questions on that before I move on.
Aaron, does that affect any of like the warranties on that stuff if we acquire them early and they sit around, or is it about when they're put into service?
No, it would not affect any warranties. So anything, like the main thing that they were talking about right now, which I actually just found out this morning that they're probably going to hold off on for a little bit longer, was rebar. So they were looking at purchasing the rebar for the athletic addition footings now, meaning that would have to be stored. So, really no warranties related with rebar, but obviously storing it, you want to make sure it's stored in a condition that it doesn't deteriorate and it's still useful. So, we were working through testing that they would be required to do, and if any of it got damaged, they would, be liable for replacement. So it would kind of go the same way for any other equipment. They would have to maintain the warranties, and if anything was damaged during storage, it would either be covered by insurance or the subcontractor who purchased it early.
Thank you.
Yep. So FF&E procurement and storage. So just a little update on some of the things outside of the construction project. The AV design is complete, and they're getting ready to start ordering some of their rough-in equipment. Furniture design is underway, targeting completion in April and ordering in July. The security scopes are out to bid. That includes card readers and security cameras. Should see those back in another week. And the data cabling networking has been sent out for bidding through the E-rate program, and hope to award that contract by early May. Oh, I say early May, that was supposed to say March. Other equipment and furnishings, so things like appliances and equipment for some of the classrooms, especially classrooms. We'll start really digging into that next month working with the district on selecting those items. And similarly to the construction materials, as we start looking through, there may be some things, specifically appliances, that are kind of hard to get right now and have long lead times. And we've kind of talked about the ability to find some storage space if it makes sense to get those to the site a little early to avoid any delays.
That's
So
on,
as we,
sorry, Karen. That's on us though, right? Because we're the furniture, that stuff's what we're trying to acquire ourselves.
Appliances.
Appliances and things.
yeah, and I mean, right now appliances is the only one that I see. And I did look, Lauren and I talked about this earlier this week, but there's a total of 44 appliances in both phases of the project. So, you know, some of them are small little ice machines, some of them are, you know, big refrigerators. So, you know, I don't think necessarily need to buy stuff for the athletic edition this early, but if it made sense to, if things were running long on lead times, going ahead and purchasing the appliances for the Learning Center edition, and just having them there so you know they don't get held up in shipping. But I think it's an amount that hopefully we could, you know, find some space within existing facilities. But if it needed to be off-site or in a storage container, which might be difficult for appliances because you don't want them to overheat, yeah, it would be on the district.
Thank you.
All right, so move management. I worked with the administration and with Lauren Feldkamp on reaching out to a couple vendors to provide some move management services. So essentially this would be a role somewhat similar to mine on the construction side for the move side. Just sitting down with the administration and the district and helping put together a scope and a plan for the move, creating a move schedule, communicating with the staff on when to pack and how to pack and what to pack. And then they would also create a bid document for physical move services, and facilitate the bidding of that work and awarding of that work. So we got 2 bids back, and based on the review of those bids, we're recommending award to Facility Systems, FSI. Their fee for that was $27,000. That is within the current project budget for move services. So there is a budget set aside in the FF&E for move management and move services. There was $75,000 in there. So this would be using part of that for the move management, and then the rest of it would be set aside for the physical move vendor that would be bid out later. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments on that.
And Aaron, we talked about this. So this would fall under my scope of approval. So we really wouldn't need board approval for this. We don't have it as an action item because it falls within that budget range. We wanted to make sure the board knew that.
It is an action item though, I think.
Is it? Did we put it as an action?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, how is insurance, if something is damaged, how is that covered?
Aaron, did you hear the question?
Insurance for something that's damaged during the move?
Yes,
Is that the question?
yes.
They have liability. Don't they have liability, Aaron?
Yes, all the move vendors have liability insurance that cover those types of things, and that would be, part of the, whatever limits that are deemed necessary would be negotiated as part of the move vendor contract. But this is just for consulting services,
Okay.
professional services,
Okay.
not the physical move aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
Then the last item I had on here was project design enhancements, and we have that special board meeting on February 22nd to go through a list of items that we've been working on and getting costs together, things such as additional asphalt thickness, additional abatement, and some additional interior finish renovations.
Okay.
So real quick, if you see my screen or in your board document, there are a few pictures from progress on site. This is as of last Wednesday, and the steel about halfway done through the Building F 2-story addition, and starting to put up the block walls around the new kitchen for the cafeteria.
Drew and I both noticed they were out there working today in the weather, so pretty impressive.
Yeah, crazy people. Those iron workers are tough.
Any questions for Aaron on her report? Anyone? I mean, I like your update there about the involvement with the students. I appreciate kind of tying that in with everything else, and I think that was, there was a lot of talk about that at the beginning, so it's kind of nice to hear what's going on, and I'm getting able to get some real world experience out of it, so thank you.
I know the students who went enjoyed getting to know kind of the ins and outs of the welding. They were pretty impressed with the welds. They were all checking out the welds and the fact that they actually have to x-ray it too. And so that was really interesting to them, because I don't think they understood that there were quality assurance steps that they had to take too. So.
That's good.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
Sounds fun, and it's, I think just on a personal note, I know going through school for construction, it's one thing to learn it in the classroom, it's another thing to get out and see how it actually works. So, I know the design and DLR, McCown, and myself are all big proponents of that, and happy to help do that however we can.
All right, well, I don't think there was any other questions regarding your update. We appreciate keeping things going, and I just asked Lauren if he could imagine doing this without you, so.
Don't give her a big head.
Well, happy to be here to help.
All right, thank you, Aaron.
All right, do you need to hang on for anything else, or?
I don't think so, Aaron. Thank you so much.
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Karen. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carries. We'll move on then to, I'm sending this on two-sided, and now it's hard for me to keep track.
Probably me.
Yeah, public forum, I guess. No public comments. All right, with that, superintendent update.
Okay, real quick, and I think it's in there. Our COVID numbers have been very level, no other way to say it. I mean, there's not even, I wouldn't even call them peaks and valleys. It's I think a little bit of a testament to everybody working hard to wear the mask, wash their hands, do as much social distancing as possible. I think the coaches have tried very hard to, to make this happen during all this. We've had some hiccups, obviously, as you may be aware of, with either this program, that program, but that's to be expected. But I think overall, we're doing quite well under the circumstances. And then we don't have it set up yet. But we are planning on having another meeting with Leavenworth County Health Department, just for updates, nothing ordinary, but it gives the Leavenworth County Soups a good chance to get together and just compare a little bit and then ask questions. In general, we meet up at Lansing or Leavenworth for those meetings to help Jamie out so he doesn't have to travel so far. And on the same tone of that, last week, the Frontier League superintendents met, and we really have a good group of superintendents in the league. We all get along great, share a lot of what's going on in their buildings and ours. As you can see, the four main topics, legislative updates. We're still discussing the private versus public school debate. ESSER funds, that's something Tanya will touch on in her report. And then just COVID-related discussion. That goes on all the time. Just every school is a little different, every county is a little different. And then, of course, I need to mention that the superintendents, we talk every day about weather. I mean, it's a shared discussion through just just talking, and every once in a while somebody will call each other. I really appreciate that. It helps. We keep alluding to the master planning on the 22nd, and that's in the training room of the district office. We'll start out with a supper, and then go right into Erin's presentation about all the different things that she needs to talk about for possible upgrades, mainly to West Campus and the TPAC area. And then I know that we want to have a little bit of time, if you want it to ourselves, just for board, maybe discussion on board goals, try to get it all wrapped up in one night. But we'll try to move Erin's presentation along quickly. We don't want it to be that's not going to dominate our evening. That's not the plan. RSP, Tanya's been working with RSP the last, 3 days, probably?
Since last week, yeah.
Yeah, she's been working with them on student data, and that's been very involved, and she can kind of touch on that if she wants, but they ask for information and we provide it. And they're off and running. They haven't used any, I think, of the information yet, but we're getting close. Of course, Dustin 80, we had our meeting last week with Dustin. Thanks for Karen and Jim joining in on that. Appreciated it. All the league principal and Tanya's evaluations are done, and I have those. I brought it with me if anybody wants to see those in executive session. We had a good meeting, I thought, with special ed last week. 2 meetings, actually, with Donna, Jennifer, David Howard. Staffing is a big issue, and some of that is growth. And not so much on our part, but Basers is growing rapidly. And so we've been sharing some positions, and so what they're looking at is we will probably have like a school psych person at our place full-time instead of sharing, and then Baser will get one. There's 3 different positions that they're recommending that we need. But it was school psych, social worker, and then a sped coach to help with all the paperwork, compliance and all that, and it's necessary. So those would be 3 positions that we'll have to work into our budgets, and that's what we're looking at. Great. Yes.
That's through the special ed budget.
That's the special ed budget, but it's still, I mean, we came in the black last year for the first time in many years. And so we've always run in the red. We had to increase our assessments. So we're going to take a hard look at what exactly those 3 positions will mean to our assessments.
So, I mean, before, was that like a 50-50?
No, it's more, it's growing, it's prorated growth numbers. It's getting closer to 58, 42. I mean.
Yeah, I figure they're bigger.
That's just what it is. They pay a larger percent through that process. Negotiations, I just want to, I mean, I can visit with Jim about this, but the end of next month, we have to have our letter of intent to negotiate prepared. And we just need to have that discussion of what all we want to put in there. And we've talked about this briefly last fall, but we need to readdress this, and I need to let, at some point, who's all going to be on that negotiating team again. You know, so that's just something for us to discuss. Got one more thing real quick, I didn't have it on there, weather concerns. All right, so we've been talking to Mr. Farrar, and Tanya's been in on this too. One of our biggest issues right now is we have kids traveling back and forth between West Campus and the main campus on a daily basis. You guys can just imagine it's not working well. It didn't go particularly well today. It is cold out there. Having those kids travel outside, slick conditions. I mean, no matter what you do, we salted that area to a high degree. It didn't make any difference. I mean, really, it's just too cold for that to work. What Mr. Farrar would like to do is for the rest of this week, go remote at the high school. And that way they can use Google Meet, take attendance, and the kids that have poor internet service can come in. You know, we would make all the different, but I wanted you to know that that's how we're really leaning, making an announcement tonight. I need to visit with Mr. Farrar after this meeting.
And still having activities as
Yes,
normal.
yeah, but yes, we still have the activities. The girls are playing basketball this week, have 2 or 3 games. And then our boys are gonna be starting practice again on Saturday. They have, Sunday, they have games, Monday. I think their first game back is Monday.
So is this just like their option? I mean,
No.
people,
Go ahead.
and how do you decide which kids are not?
Well, Mr. Farrar has kind of tossed this idea around, and instead of making it optional for each student, they felt the attendance in that case might end up like 75% at home, 25% at school, or vice versa, and it would be harder for the teachers and the students to make any kind of connection at that point. So what he is recommending is that we just do all remote, so students can make that personal connection with their teacher through the Google Meet every day during every period, instead of half at home, half at school.
It would be from now through Friday.
But if they don't have good internet,
They can come in, yes.
Do they go to the classroom if they come in, or are they in like a centralized location where they'll?
It would probably depend on the number. Last time they had them in a centralized location, which worked really well. And I think that's what they're
He
looking at.
mentions
is
library.
Library or chieftain room.
I mean, the weather forecast is into next week, so would that extend into next
We'll
week?
have to just see. It's rugged. And,
It makes it more difficult because they have to travel behind the building now, and it's a further walk, and it's not, it's not a sidewalk, it's not, it's all kinds of different terrain to walk through back
and
there.
I know, Karen, you walk both ways uphill, but it's just, it's tough. It is cold, and I hate to say this, but we're not responsible for coats and not wearing shorts to school, but it's kind of where we're
Well,
at.
I know my own kid wore
Jeez.
4 layers today because each period was at the opposite campus, and he was cold.
I think it's a better option for us right now. I think I support going remote this week, and then take a hard look at it on Monday and Tuesday of next week.
So what's the process for a family who doesn't have do they just still show up and drop it off the same as before? Is there any communication ahead of time, or what's the details of that look like?
I would hope that there would be that communication.
Yes, well, that's why he's asking. He wants to communicate that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And students.
Well, it's communicated out, but is the parent responsible for communicating anything back?
I can sure share that with Mr. Farrar.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we don't want that to be a mess.
Right.
So that's where we're at. I mean, I know it's not ideal, but it's, under our current situation, it's, I think, our best option.
Yeah, it's just not much preparation time for families.
Yeah, we'll try to address anybody that, we need to get them in here. If they can bring them in, we'll take care of them. And that would include, the lunch program and everything.
Stephanie, do you have any thoughts related to your perspective on that, or?
Well, I think I'd rather see the kids in class, but if it's I guess a safety issue, then I think we have to consider that as well. But I would hope that it's a short-term fix for what's going on.
That would definitely be we want them back in the classroom as soon as possible.
Because I do have some questions, and maybe that's more Tom, you can answer, about how we're grading kids right now during this time period when, like I've read several things where they say like failing is now very different than failing in the past. Like, and I personally see grades that are grades I've never seen before with kids that I know can do much better. And how is that working, and what's the teacher's responsibility, I guess, too? And so then it concerns me that they'll even be farther away from the teachers over this week. And what is the responsibility for like when do we contact parents, and like how does all that kind of work?
I know our high school administration, we're contacting a lot of parents, especially in that time where we had remote-only students at home, a lot higher number of those kids in the first semester. And they had divided up, who calls which kids and calling frequently. We have more kids back in school now as opposed to in the first semester, but when we have these little chunks of time where we do remote, there still has to be that contact. And teachers are always to report the students and parents they're having trouble contacting. They report this to the administration reaches out, and the counselors. I know it's tough, and it's different for every subject too, because like welding is much different than English, and how do you measure and how do you do things? Some things can be easily done at home and submitted in Google Classroom, others cannot. And I think they do a lot of makeup when those kids come back to try to recoup that.
So we have an administrative meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And what we
Like I
have is emphasize.
I see kids who were A/B level kids making B's and C's that I think their confidence is lower than probably it has been in the past, and I really feel like they need a teacher. I know homeroom is supposed to be kind of like that, but they need a teacher or an administrator, someone to, I guess, maybe encourage them a little more when they see that they're not historically making the grades that they probably have in the past. And I know there's a lot of kids, and I don't know how that is easy to do, but especially like between, like as they started school and maybe as they were in like around Christmas time, if they saw a dramatic change in their grade or their participation, like how does that work? Like are they contacting the parents?
I mean, it's definitely something we will address.
Have we noticed, just curiosity, but when you see the lower grades, is it because the actual grade on a given assignment or test is lower, or are they just not turning things in? Or some of both?
I think it's a combination.
It's probably a combination, and it's probably different based on different classes, different teachers, and how things are graded.
And I think a lot of it is just kids, the mental
But I think
piece of it. It's gotta be that they don't maybe feel the connection.
Although I have heard the opposite too,
It's gone both ways.
kids were pleased being at home during remote, and because they felt like if they wanted to reach out and ask questions, they felt more comfortable doing that with their teacher on a Google Meet or an email instead of in front of their whole class. So I've heard it both ways from students that they prefer one over the other. We always want students to be here as much as possible.
Well, I think communication with parents is critical during this time.
Mhm.
And some people are better at it than other people, and maybe a push to do some
The support.
parent communication, more of it during that time might be helpful too.
Mhm.
Those are good suggestions.
I think,
With
well,
being-
go ahead.
With being in person, I just wanted to say real quick, like, we have good internet at our house, but they struggled so much with being remote and falling behind, and then that stress of catching up. I mean, if the decision is to give the option to go remote, I mean, I'll go out tonight and buy more clothes for her so she's in school tomorrow and she's warm. I mean, but because she, and I think she's in there with a lot of other students where it was so much of a struggle with remote that, you know, we'll be wearing 5 layers of clothes or something, because it's that valuable to her and impacted, it's that stressful to her to get that far behind, even if it's only 5 days. To catch back up takes twice as long once you're back in the class. So I don't, from my personal perspective, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with that similar to me, so that if there's an option for folks to go remote, then there's just, it was that painful for us in there between Thanksgiving and Christmas that mine will probably be showing up tomorrow for that reason. I don't know if,
Well, I was just sharing Mark's preference, and I think it's probably, from his side of it, it's probably cleaner to go with Google Meet for the attendance piece, and then the teacher's not having to try to do 2 different platforms as much, but in large numbers. Not,
Yeah.
That's about it. What else, Tanya? I can't, that'd be, I haven't talked to Mark.
I mean, it kinda seems to me like we've said in our remote thing for COVID, it would take us 2 days or 1 day for high school, and now we're trying to do it in less than a day just because of the weather.
The high school,
I mean-
the high school could pull it off.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. High
I
school-
mean, my daughter complained today that it was cold going between buildings, but I know her schedule's different tomorrow, but I don't think, but to Drew's point, she's never really a fan of remote school either, so. I mean, unless there's I mean, it seems like we gotta have a pretty defined plan and some lead time for parents.
Like,
I don't know. I know, I'm confident my daughter will be like, oh, I want to go. Like,
well, let Tanya and I visit with Mark.
Well, and I don't see a problem. I know we're expecting more snow and weather Wednesday, Thursday, so I don't see a problem with trying to go tomorrow and then trying to work out kinks.
Prep for snow day, I mean, then we don't, I mean, from the beginning, if we
Yeah.
can pull this off, why are we having the snow days? They can just work from home and be remote, and if there's a
Well,
I mean, so I mean, there's a bigger safety problem.
Right.
I didn't let mine drive today because I drove her, because I didn't trust her getting there.
And of course, the
Yeah.
elementary and the middle school plays a big factor.
Yeah.
what were you saying? What were you going to say, Pat?
Sorry, Pat.
Oh, when you're talking about the grades, I have one of my children who I'm pretty sure, I don't think that she's ever missed turning in an assignment her whole entire educational career, and she had a 10-point assignment that she missed turning in, and it was one of those things like you're flip-flopping. Like, I just think there's been so much change and so much going on, so many differences, that I think sometimes that gets the student in. Actually, I think in a normal year that's absolutely 1,000% the student's responsibility, but this year with so much differences, I almost wish the teachers would, give a little grace, or, if there's a student that is normally getting 102% in every class, then, or whatever, whatever their average is, to your point, like whatever their grade average is, if it's a below, I just would think that the teachers would be giving them a little grace on stuff, but I don't know.
Our experience at our house for it all was different, because I have in all 3 schools, and the teachers have been great with working with this. It's just been the struggle of keeping up with because there's so much activity in the classroom that there's those activities, that they struggle with the discipline when the session is over to follow through, because in the classroom they're surrounded by people that are doing it, so they just do it with them. And when the teacher logs off, I think for my kids, they struggle with following through and getting it done before the next class, and it just snowplows on them. And I have one that does it really well, and then the others struggle.
Yeah, it's just, it's hard. I'm sure it's impossible for the teachers to keep up. It's hard for the kids to keep up. Like, it's probably just a year I don't know. It's hard. I don't
We get it.
on the safety thing for school, the sole reason that we would go remote the rest of the week is because of them walking between buildings. That's the one and only rule, right?
Yeah.
Or reason. So there's no way, so if the ice melt doesn't work to make it safe to go back and forth, then, I mean, cause I don't.
Well, the biggest problem I
don't-
see is Friday's supposed to be our very coldest day.
Yeah.
I mean, they're talking, the wind chill's supposed to be like 14 to 15 below.
Yeah.
Could we have a bus take them back and forth?
No.
I don't think we can logistically
Why?
pull that off. We can
pay all
just,
those people by the hour, just let them sit there.
How many students are going in between the
Oh,
buildings?
man.
It varies by class, by hour.
I'd say over 100.
So how many people, there's 74 in a bus, so you have 2 buses that run back and forth in between the
Well,
buildings
they're
all
coming
day?
from different,
You're
to
going
get
both
them on the
ways.
bus at the same time and get them over, and that's a narrow pathway through there, so if there's anybody walking, I would not put a bus going through there.
It's,
It's
Well,
tight.
I drove through there and parked down there for a basketball game.
Yeah, but if you have all your staff parking back there too, and then trying to get a I wouldn't.
By the time you load the bus, unload the bus, the kid could have walked across. I mean, we've had 2 facilities for 20-some years, and we're trying to solve this problem. Nobody's froze to death in 20 years, have they?
Maybe it was a shorter walk.
What role does the parent play
Path is
to dress your
longer.
kid? If your kid doesn't get dressed right, that's your problem. I mean, I don't, I guess
This isn't new
I'm
to
old,
Kansas.
unsympathetic.
well,
The funny thing is that all of my relatives in Wisconsin think it's hilarious when we call
I
snow
know.
days because they're
I
like,
know.
we're to school and it's -30, you know? But
I mean, yeah, if we don't have school, they're gonna be at home sledding and.
let us visit with, in the morning. We have a meeting at 9 o'clock. And we'll do the best we can.
Yeah, to me, high school students, I mean, there's a little different, like, if it was young kids, it would be something completely different, I mean, to me, it's, but,
I just think it's hard. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think we understand the concern.
Okay, all right, Tanya?
Can I ask
Sure,
one question
sorry.
more? Where are we at with the rec commission and a MOU?
Well, Drew and I were gonna visit with them, and we haven't visited with them in a month.
well, I haven't visited, I haven't talked to them.
I haven't visited with them in a month.
So how much are they using West Campus,
Who?
the rec commission,
Oh, now, or no, in the future?
right now?
They're not,
None at all?
no.
Okay, so they won't start using it until?
Oh, no, until a year and a half from now. Yeah, no, there's nothing that the rec commission's using. Mainly what they're using is here, in the elementary, and a little bit in the middle school with adults.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing in the West
But
Campus.
that isn't any different than what they had done. in
No,
years
nothing's
past.
changed.
Yeah.
No, we feel like we're in a good position.
What do we wanna target for that, as far as time? I mean, a year will go by pretty quick, but.
I think
I mean, aren't we gonna know, maybe that's a date we talk about at our meeting on the 22nd, because we're gonna talk about some improvements to that facility and kind of strategic
Big
plan.
deal.
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe that gives
I think that would be appropriate.
Lauren a chance to
visit with them again.
visit either them or with Aaron and kind of some timing of when we think that transition might occur.
Or at least a plan be defined. First step.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for Lauren? Move on to Tanya then?
All right, we've got the free ACT coming up for high school juniors who have signed up for that, February 23rd and 24th. And those are the state dates that they've given us to do the test online. We do have some makeup dates later on in the spring if students are not able to meet those 2 dates. And state assessments will be getting started. The KELPA is for English language learners, and that starts February 15th through March 31st. We've got all those set up and ready to go. We have ELA in math and science, And those will be, during those time windows, they're April 1st through May 18th. But specifically in each building, they set their dates when they do their specific testing with their grade levels. So it may be different for different buildings. I put our calendar for the week of February 22nd through 26th. That's one of those weeks that's a little off because we do have a teacher work day, we have parent-teacher conferences, and then that Friday the 26th, we have all buildings closed. I did want to update you, which is not in this update here. We arranged with Leavenworth County Health Department to give COVID vaccines to our staff members, and that included substitutes. So we gave the first round of vaccines January 28th, and then they will come back out again on February 25th during parent-teacher conference time. We have different slot times for our teachers so they can get their second round of vaccines if they wish. And that worked really well. The dyslexia update, you know, we've talked about this, gosh, it's been quite a while. Kansas State Department of Education has some requirements toward dyslexia, and all school systems will have to have a dyslexia screener. Well, districts can use screeners that they already have in place, but if you don't have that in place, you have to have that in place beginning in August. We've looked at everything that we have in place, and we do not have a dyslexia screener that meets the criteria. We've looked at our MAP assessments. That does not qualify. We do have great data with MAP, but it doesn't provide what we need for dyslexia. So we've been searching, we've been doing some demos, and we visited with curriculum leaders across the state. Many school districts, they're using FastBridge, and we have some demo logins to use with that, and we've sent some information to our teachers. We did have a meeting earlier today on that. It offers a computer adaptive screener, so it adapts to the students as they take it for reading, math, dyslexia. It has curriculum-based measurements for progress monitoring for reading, math, dyslexia, and then it also has that social emotional piece. Now, if you remember, we purchased Panorama to use for that. And if we move toward FastBridge, which I've had several of our teachers looking at, we would move away from MAP and Panorama and move to FastBridge, which would be a lot less expensive, and we wouldn't have two different sets of data. What I do like about this is that it would pull our academic data and our social emotional data and put it together. So you could look at a student as a whole student instead of pieces that are separated. So that's another reason that we're looking at that.
Have you talked with schools that have used that before?
Yes, and you know, honestly, I sent it out on Curriculum Leaders Listserv a couple of times, and we've talked through Greenbush. Greenbush is becoming a trainer of FastBridge, and they have a FastBridge users group, and we've been a part of that. Almost every school district I talk to is going with FastBridge, and they're very impressed with it. They did say one of the complaints is it can be overwhelming if you try to take on too much, which is with any new program. So they suggested kind of a slower start and not try to do all the training at once and all the reporting at once, just to kind of ease into it. Everybody's been very happy with it so far. Of course, with any national program like this, you know, you get your national trainers in, and sometimes you get a really good one, sometimes you get some that aren't so good. So we would need to work to get a really good trainer.
My concern is, I guess since I've been on the board, you've had multiple different screeners or data collecting programs. And so I'm afraid you're not really tracking the kids very well if you're constantly changing. And so now we're implementing MAP, and now we're on to a new one. And so how does that information transfer then, any MAP data that you already have, does it transfer into FastBridge? Is there a way to qualify that so you can actually track their historical data? Because if you jump around too much, all that data is worth nothing.
Right, which is an issue. We had MAP to begin with, and then through our MTSS process, we were with AIMSWeb for a few years, and then AIMSWeb made a jump to AIMSWeb Plus, and it didn't work for anybody. So we've been with MAP for several years now. We do have a lot of good data with MAP. The FastBridge data, where it's different, is it's a lot more user-friendly for teachers, and it covers a broad spectrum. You don't have to pick and choose what portions of the program you use. With FastBridge, it's a one price and you get everything. Almost everybody we've talked to has moved from MAP to FastBridge. There are a few schools who are staying with MAP and adding FastBridge, but I think that's almost too much testing for kids. The data correlates pretty similarly in what it does measure. So like your RIT scores, you get RIT scores with both. So I think it would be comparable, and while it would be different, we could still see the progression of kids, how they move through MAP and then into FastBridge.
I mean, is that for across all measuring categories that it's comparable, that you have a correlation, even if it's a conversion factor or something like that, but is there?
Both would measure reading and math. MAP does not do social emotional, but
Okay.
FastBridge does. And we've only had one round with Panorama. It's been a difficult year to try to get data for that because we've been in and out of school so much.
Do we have, I mean, to Stephanie's point, once we go with FastBridge, how confident are we that it serves our needs and that there won't be something else? Like, I mean, is there an evaluation process where we're listing down all of the criteria and all the things we want out of it, and then grading, kind of like a rubric of here's everything we're looking at, how well does this solution address this, and versus MAP versus something else, so that we can at least have, okay, this is why we chose this, because it seems to me like, we had it wasn't too long ago, we had a big presentation about all the effort that's been going into MAP and everything, and now we're talking about changing it.
Yes, well, part of that is MAP doesn't meet the needs of our new requirement for all the dyslexia screening.
So
and when we looked at all the screeners for dyslexia, if we kept MAP, which we could, we had to add in a lot of other extra pieces, which would be a lot more time for our students to be testing, a lot more programs that they would have to learn and that our teachers would have to learn, and then that data doesn't pull together, and then also more expense.
So did we not know about the is this something new?
It's new. It is brand new. They have been releasing a lot more information. This year, between August and May, we have to be training our staff members on dyslexia. We have that in place. We have the secondary piece of it just now. They've released the second training on that. So this is all brand new. We spent a long time looking at what we currently have in place and what we could put into play. And every time we would come up with, a plan, FastBridge was the better solution with all of the other options.
If it's new, what schools are using it currently?
FastBridge? FastBridge itself is not brand new. The dyslexia screener and all the requirements for dyslexia is new. FastBridge has been around for a while. I don't know exactly how many years, I can check on that, but every school district that I surveyed out there is using FastBridge now.
Anybody locally,
Oh gosh,
I know
Wamego.
Chuck's been working on this too.
Yes, Wamego, and there are a lot of school districts in the area, and from the call this morning, I don't remember, all the ones who responded to me are using it from statewide, so it's not just this area, it's across the state, but it is
We can
national.
find out, because Chuck's reached out to the people that he's known and had the same, positive responses. So we can get that to you.
Is there a cost? Like, are they similar?
License.
There is a cost, yes. The price that we pay now for MAP, which we have to pay to add all the different pieces into MAP, and then also for Panorama, is more expensive than if we just went with FastBridge and it offers all in one, and you don't add more pieces. So it would be less expensive to go with FastBridge, but it would offer more. And we're still looking
And
at
is
it.
FastBridge and that, is it nationally norm test then? And
Yes.
so it would qualify under, like when the state asks like what kind of tracking you're doing, that would,
Yes.
FastBridge actually qualifies as one of those
Yes.
programs that they recognize.
Mhm.
Would we be looking at that if it wasn't for the dyslexia?
Probably not. I mean, the whole reason that we started looking to see if we met all the requirements of the new dyslexia piece with the state is, I mean, that was the whole reason. You know, do we have something in place that meets all those requirements, and we do not.
What are other dyslexia, like screeners, what other?
There's
ones
different
are out there?
categories that you have to meet on their rubric. FastBridge meets all of them. There's no other program that meets all of them. We'd have to piecemeal it in. Ames Web does a few things, Dibbles does a few things, MAP does a couple. So we'd have to piece in a lot, and it would be a lot more expensive if we pieced it in. Plus, it would add a lot more testing time for our students, which I don't think more testing is beneficial.
I definitely don't think more testing time is beneficial, but I do think that tracking data over a long period of time is beneficial, and if you change it around every couple of years, you literally have wasted the teacher's time, number one, because they're having to learn new programs, and then you're not doing a very good job of actually tracking those kids who may have or may be having difficulty in a certain area, and if you're jumping around to a new program, it doesn't read the same. So a kid in MAP may look very different than a kid in FastBridge, and how do you recognize the difference and who needs the
Right.
additional help?
And they are comparable. I mean, they talked on the call this morning about, you know, the couple schools who are doing both, they're very similar in data. So the kid who's struggling in MAP is also the kid who's struggling in FastBridge, and they can see.
Does FastBridge offer as part of their, a transition plan, a way to map or not, I guess port that information in, to be able to, I mean, how, cause again, this is just like, I just go back to like, this is all because the state made I mean, did the state have any idea the kinds of changes this would force within districts that, I mean, was FastBridge lobbying for this?
No,
Or what? I mean,
no. But honestly, this
You know
whole
what I'm
thing with
saying? It just
dyslexia
seems-
started with a very large contingent of parents filing a lawsuit, national level, that schools aren't doing enough with dyslexia. Our students have dyslexia and schools aren't doing it. I mean, it's just a national thing that has filtered then down to the
Well, I think it has the right intent, but I
Oh,
don't
sure.
think there's probably some unintended side effects
Sure.
from this as far as.
You know, our
Every time there's a
legislators got
new,
involved too.
every time there's a new initiative, there are unintended consequences. We
Right.
have to jump through more hoops, and it's not a bad, I mean, you know, while we are having to jump through hoops and change programs, and honestly, it's a good thing if we're meeting the needs of those students who struggle
Yeah.
because of dyslexia.
Oh, it's a real thing. I mean,
Yeah, it
it's,
is.
yeah, and it's difficult to identify.
Mhm. Well, and to be real honest, our teachers were not trained for that. You know, some of them, yes, because that's what they do. They teach reading, those lower elementary levels. But do you think our high school teachers know how to recognize dyslexia? No. That's why we have that training now that's for secondary, for middle and high school teachers, especially those teaching English and special ed, to be able to recognize that.
Yeah, it's just, you know, how do we, is there any way that within our ability to mitigate the risk of future changes? Because it seems like it's just been so,
Just, a lot of this was driven by legislators.
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I assume, Stephanie's point is, then there'll be some plan, we'll use the old map, I mean, the kids' history will be map data up to this point, and then FastBridge up to this point, and you can somewhat, I mean, there's gotta be a few years where you're trying to figure out if they're trending or reverting or doing this or that.
Well, and I can ask, you know, the company FastBridge if there is some kind of a crosswalk, you know, data, how can they bring that together? I'm sure this is not the first time that they've
Yeah.
dealt with that.
So, I mean, was the effort and planning done? How much of the previous effort and planning that was done, that was presented to us, can still apply to what we're doing now? Is that a lot of rework? Or, you know, cause it was talking about like just how it was getting implemented and all that kind of stuff. You know, would that still be the plan, but now it's just this new platform, or does the plan change, or?
I'm not sure what you're asking. I mean, we're still collecting data on.
But they were expanding,
Their
right? They were,
abilities.
they were talking about adding some things, if I remember right, and doing some additional.
Grade levels. They
Grade
talked about
levels.
expanding it through the grade levels. You had middle school come and talk about it.
Oh,
So
that
you
they're,
talked about
when they
elementary.
use MAP,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And actually with FastBridge, it screens K through 12. MAP only does K through 8.
Okay.
So it would be an expansion, and yes, we are required to screen high school students for dyslexia beginning in August. So that's a big part. I mean, we could give a MAP test, but it would be an 8th grade MAP test.
I think what Drew was just saying was we had that presentation they were talking, and then it was getting expanded to the elementary so that we'd have this long history of data and progress on the
We've
students.
used MAP in K through 8.
But if that, it's just a substitute of programs, or does it change the whole process when you switch?
Strategy, right? And so the goal would still be getting that across all, like we were going to do with MAP, but now maybe would our plan would then be, would we be implementing and using all of FastBridge at all grade levels, or just the dyslexia at the high school and then roll it out to a greater degree at the younger?
Well, you don't use, I mean, there's no like separate dyslexia piece, but FastBridge monitors for that. So you give a universal screener to everybody, and then you determine down strengths and weaknesses based on that. So everybody would take that first universal screener, and then for those kids who need that extra help, say, same with MAP, those kids who are identified in different quadrants and areas that need that extra help, then you discover what are their strengths and weaknesses. So you have that progress monitoring piece and the diagnostic piece.
But with MAP, it takes it directly to that standard that that child might be missing. Is that the same with
Yes.
this program? That it goes directly to a standard where a teacher can
Standards,
say.
yes, and skills, specific skills. It goes deeper than MAP, I guess.
I have 2 quick questions. So the first is, you said that some districts are staying with MAP. So if they're staying with MAP, then what are they doing to address the dyslexia?
They're also doing FastBridge.
Oh, they're doing both.
Yes.
Okay.
Of the ones that we've talked to. Now, you don't have to pick FastBridge. If you want to use other screeners, that's fine, but there are different areas that you select, you have to meet for all the areas. And so some, like if you choose Ames Web, it'll only meet 2 or 3 of those. And then you have to pick another program, so you could use Dibbles for this or that, and then another for, so they're piecemealing it instead of getting the one piece.
I guess the one thing that I'm kind of concerned about is that, like, when you do a dyslexia screener, once you've screened probably within the first few years of elementary school, you know whether that child is dyslexic or not. You don't determine that in 4th grade and then they look fine till 10th grade, and then all of a sudden in 10th grade they have dyslexia. It doesn't work like that.
Right,
So
right.
I guess it seems like a lot for it's really a one-time screener for those kids once you've identified them.
It's not just for dyslexia though.
Right.
So it's
I
a
understand
universal
that.
screener. So at different grade levels, they screen for different pieces as a part of a whole. So like nonsense words, rhyming, fluency, segmentation, phoneme, there's different things at different grade levels, but there is a piece for high school and they screen for different things. But then once you get your scores for that, you still will have to do a diagnostic to determine exactly where they're deficient in what areas and levels.
So what's the plan then if you have, like in high school, you determine that somebody's dyslexic and they have deficiencies with like phonics? Do they go into a phonics program in high school, or how is that gonna work?
Well, that would depend on what their plan is for MTSS, so their tiered instruction. So at the elementary and at the middle school, we have a pretty good format of tiered instruction and how that works. High schools rarely have tiered instruction because they're all credit-based, they're not skills-based. So yes, you would have to, and that could be incorporated in a homeroom time, it could be incorporated in, maybe your English class is this group of kids and they're grouped by skill base instead of, I just want to be in this English class. So really the high school has to design that and how they intervene and help those students who have those deficiencies. But that's a whole huge conversation that I just can't answer. That's building based.
So all the teachers that came here, I mean, I can remember some of them that, you know, that came here and talked about the math testing and how happy they were and how they can see how it's helped them, you know, teach kids and address issues and all of that. So did they know that the system's being changed? And do you think that they, like, I mean, like, what is the process before you get to this point where you switch it?
Well, we've spent the year, we had a phonics committee here at the elementary, and we've spent the year, mostly administrators, but also key people at each building, like some English teachers, title reading, those folks digging in and looking what specifically are we missing. But until the state came out with their magic list of, you have to have all these things in place by next August, you know, we couldn't go anywhere. Now, some people have completed all of that dyslexia training, and some folks haven't. So, you know, we have till the end of this school year to do that. So as we've been getting through this, I send out information to teachers to please take a look at, give me your feedback on. All the feedback I've gotten on FastBridge has been excellent, especially from our upper level teachers, which I've been surprised because they're not normally involved in, you know, assessing and remediation in these specific areas.
So has a decision been made to move forward with FastBridge, or is FastBridge right now the top contender and there's still other options out there as part of a comprehensive look at what we have and it could change, or?
It's basically a top contender. We've not made an official decision yet, but if we're going to move to these other ones, we're gonna have multiple assessment programs that we have to have in place. The only one that meets all the needs would be FastBridge. My fear is if we don't go with that and we have to pull in all those extra things, teachers will be overwhelmed with, well, now I have to get trained in 3 or 4 things to assess and do.
Is FastBridge a well-established market leader in this?
Yes. It's nationally normed. It's been used.
Were they evaluated as part of the MAP side of things? I mean, because we went away from MAP and we went back. Were they looked at that point in time for some reason?
No, honestly, why we went away from MAP was when I very first got here, the decision was made before I got here that MAP was too expensive, we didn't have the money. It was during that really struggling time for schools.
The recession?
Yes, I mean, it was a budget consideration before I came on board. So at that point, they wanted to put Ames Web into place because it would have been cheaper, and then Ames Web changed to Ames Web Plus, and it was a nightmare for teachers. It was horrible for them to use and not user-friendly. So we made the decision to move back to MAP because it was established and in place. At that point, dyslexia was not on the forefront of any conversation.
Right.
So we didn't know we would need to have something in place.
Well, maybe let Tom and her group kind of keep digging in on that thing.
Yeah, and I can bring back an update on how things are going, but yeah, we've been looking at quite a few things. I do also have a couple things on here about the Greenbush Virtual Academy. We are not at the point yet to have our own virtual school or virtual program. We likely will be in the near future when we're able to move our district offices into the West Campus and have some room there. So at this point, we are planning on tagging on with Greenbush Virtual Academy. We just signed on with them, but that doesn't mean we have to use them. It only means that we can use them as an option. And that would be for those students who want a strictly virtual program, if they need it. We would have them work with our counselors and our administrators to determine if that would be appropriate for them. It's not one of those things you can jump in and then jump back out of and jump back in. It's not like remote learning is right now. It's a separate program. So we just wanted to have that as an option for our students in the future until we're able to have our own virtual program established. So it doesn't cost us anything right now, and it's good because even if our students joined up with that, we would still get to count them as our students. So it's a great option to have just as an option. Also for summer school, and this is where our ESSER 2 funds come into place. We are working on plans for a summer school for K through 12 to address learning loss resulting from all this COVID stuff and shutdowns. We have in place already, and have for a few years our high school credit recovery and our middle school, which functions basically like credit recovery for those kids who failed English or math. But we're going to expand our summer school offerings this year with this SR2 money, and we're working on plans for adding in elementary students and using our data to inform us of which kids would benefit the most and what that program would look like. We are still in the very beginning planning stages for that, but I will bring more information back as we get closer. So that is what I have for you.
All right, any other questions or anything? If not, we'll move into the action items. Item 5.1, approval of Beattyfield lighting bid. I think we kind of already discussed that some. I know there's, I don't know, Laura, if you want to say any more. We've talked about this for off and on.
My recommendation after going through this for a couple months is to do the, obviously to move forward with the lights, but to also do the new poles. I think is the best way to do it instead of trying to retrofit the existing poles for the long term of this project. I mean, what I heard tonight is, I mean, this could be a 30+ year type move here, and I believe that. And then the speakers, we talked quite a bit about the speakers. You know, talking with Mitch, I think Forrest was involved in that a little bit too. We just feel like to put the speakers on the poles is the best location for us. For us to move those up to the press box or over by the scoreboard or on a different pole or something, you're gonna run into some money there too. But I don't know if Forrest, you guys were all involved in that. I think, was Wire Nuts involved in that too?
Yeah.
I mean, we brought in several people to take a look at it. So I think my recommendation, what the guys were talking about, was to go ahead and put them on, if we do the new poles, to put them on the new poles, and you have a better setup for the long term of things. And I agree with that.
And
So,
I got a question on that. Maybe you know, is running the audio in those poles with the power, does that create any noise issues, or as far as the sound quality and stuff, which is, or is that not even a concern?
it's all separate wiring.
Right, but sometimes you can have just static come in. Just
Boy,
from-
I would be really disappointed if that happened. I couldn't see
Because
that.
that's when they use like shielded cable or something
Oh,
like
okay.
that, you know,
I
or
don't know
have
about that.
Well, and, I mean, this is a capital outlay purchase, not bond related.
Right.
And, I mean, I know we kind of have that target of the 1.5 million, keep maintaining at least $1.5 million in there, so this isn't gonna impact. I mean, I think Lori was here last time and walked us through that we'd still be roughly at that 1.5 million or so with this purchase and the bus purchase.
Right. So my recommendation would be for the 288, which would include the new lights, new poles, and then
The speakers.
the speaker brackets attached to the new poles. They have to be fabricated that way.
So, I have some concerns. I think the timing around the strategic planning that we're doing, it would seem to be a shame to go spend, $300,000 prior to at least going a step or two further down this strategic plan, both the meeting this month as well as the work with DLR. I worry a lot about it from an optics perspective. I know that we said it's not part of the bond fund, but it isn't what we said we were gonna do with the bond dollars when they were voted in. And part of the reason it's not so impactful to the capital budget is because how high valuations are and how high everyone's taxes are right now. So I don't like it from an optics perspective. I understand at some point we're gonna have to do it, but I just am concerned about it for those reasons.
What is the, like if we wait till after the strategic planning and, do it later, like, what is the downfall of that?
Timing. Pure and simple. Timing.
Timing because the bid will go up, or timing because why?
No.
Because of the time it takes to install.
Well, fabricate, assemble.
And the bid might go up. I mean, it might go down, but it might go up. That's,
I mean, it's the soccer,
Certainly
it's
risk.
that, I mean, we always have ongoing events. I mean, I guess, I think there's been some routine maintenance with the lights to get them on, and, I mean, I guess,
So when would they install? Because I apologize because I got here late. but-
They can install them anytime and still leave the old lights up as a backup plan. And then that would be a seamless transition. When the new lights are ready to go, they're ready to go, and then they demo the old lights at that point. And they could demo those in a day or less.
So-
the guy that was here that presented said it would take if approved tonight, 4 to 6 weeks to get the material to the site, and 2 to 3 weeks for Capital Electric to install. I mean, so you're talking 6 to 9 weeks.
So what events before the end of the school would we miss if we didn't have lights? Like
The potential,
what?
Track meets and soccer.
yeah.
Track and girls.
Yeah, the potential would be girls soccer and, when we would start track meets. Because we would probably, right now, track meets start anywhere between 4, like 3:30 to 4. And, they usually end by 9:30 to 10. And that would be,
So, what potential circumstances or situations that might arise as part of planning would change your recommendation?
well, we talked, and I was, as Justin was mentioning that, the only thing that, and we looked at this pretty hard, the fencing, to both the east and west of the facility, but we think that fencing is gonna be in the exact same place. We can't go too far east, because the ditch is in the roads right there. The bleachers is something that we would have to look at. We talked about the visiting bleachers as a potential project. That would fall into the master planning, and I think, and that discussion with the fencing would all have to take place at the same time. The lights and their location would not affect any of this. Because of where they're gonna locate them.
Any discussion or any of those options would not impact?
No. We looked into that.
Okay.
They're gonna be, they'll be located differently where the old poles are, but not a lot. You know, they're not gonna be 30 feet further east or west.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of that might change it would be if you're saying 20 years from now, that field might not even be there. Right?
Yeah,
Which,
that would be a big switch.
right, what's the likelihood of that?
I would hope, I don't see that. I just don't.
Right, I mean, I'm just trying to think about,
You would have to have some mega growth in the community
Right.
that would require you to.
which would mean
Facility.
that would be the smallest project you had in
Correct.
the whole
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
I mean, it would be
That's not even on
huge.
my radar.
and I think it's far enough out. We're gonna have to do something with the lights before that's a concern. And, you know, it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
even if we said no tonight, the lights aren't gonna last as long as it would take to get to that scenario.
I don't think they've lasted now. I mean, I think they're going now.
I mean, I guess I don't like the idea of spending the money, and I know the optics aren't great, but I think if this was August and they wouldn't come on, we'd have them here tomorrow, so we could have it for football games. I mean, maybe I'm a bias because I got a girl on the soccer team, but I guess I feel like if we're gonna do them, and it fits into the regular capital outlay budget, I mean, you know, what we got caught up when I got on the board was a lot of things were behind, and we've had to chip away, and I mean, the more we kick the can down the road, the price, I mean, you know, there's just more projects pile up. I have all the same concerns as Justin. I guess maybe not to the degree.
Let me ask one more question, and I may be the only one that's concerned enough to vote no, and that's okay. But would it hurt anything to get through at least that meeting on the 22nd and make sure that it's really at the top of the wish list? I'd hate to go through that meeting on the 22nd and not be able to have an open and honest conversation about what ought to be at the top of the wish list, because we already spent $300,000. Maybe that's not a concern, but it's just something
Well,
to
I
think
think
about.
this is just my perspective, and everybody's welcome to disagree with it, but, I think for me, whatever is got talked about on the 22nd, maintaining and what you already have is is a top priority. My priority is do that first, and then whatever you have left over is for additional stuff, if you have anything left over. And so for me, this is a maintaining what we already have that is beyond its expected life.
Could cost us money.
Right, and then avoiding it in the future, and, you know, and basically saying, okay, we don't have to worry about that again for an extended amount of time.
I feel like it's like being proactive and kind of pre-planning slightly in the future before it's so emergent that now you're in trouble, kind of thing with the lights.
I looked it up, so there's at least 9 games in the spring that are home on the field.
More than that. And
Well, on the schedule, I'm talking nation.
We have 3 track meets, possibly 4, and then, the soccer would be, 8 games, possible season, that's your 9, and then JV, and then whatever else goes on. The field gets used. I mean, we know,
I think it's been more successful than we thought.
Oh, it's off the charts.
It's used a lot.
I'm pretty sure I knew it was gonna be a success.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You know, we had that
I
nice.
had to say it.
It was the last Wednesday or Thursday. It was a fairly nice night. There was 30 little, I'd say, 2nd and 3rd graders soccer practice.
But they won't be using the live.
No.
We're not gonna let
But
them
we're
have-
talking to turf. It was just wonderful to see the coaches out there working. Anyway, different story.
If you're entertaining a motion, I'm going to make a motion.
The floor is open, so.
I make a motion that we approve the bid for the lights as recommended by Lauren, with the new poles and the speaker brackets for $288,000.
Is there a second? All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? All right, motion carried. Good discussion. What? Oh, it was
Oh, I did.
Stephanie, sorry. All right, item 5.2, move management contract.
Yeah, well, sorry, I went back and forth on this because what this is the planning of the move management for I think it was 27, I can't read, 27,341. And this is necessary for us to continue to move forward. Aaron put this together for us, and I appreciated it, and so I support this action.
I mean, it seemed to make sense to me. If it's already built into the budget and.
I think the timing's too tight to try and do it ourselves. Well,
Well, this is just the logistics.
no, I get that. but
Yeah.
the-
I mean, you could just tell from tonight having Aaron, and that's why I said that, Lauren, could you imagine this? I mean, all the things she got about the rebar and the testing, I mean, this person's gonna do the same for us, I think,
Yeah.
on the move. So, any other discussion? I'd entertain a motion to approve the move management contract.
I move that we approve the move management contract with Facility Systems for $27,341.
Second?
Karen seconded, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. Item 5.3, approval of the 2021-2022 calendar.
And I'll turn it over to Tanya, because she met with the committee and put this all together.
The calendar is very similar to prior to COVID. And we've added in more information for kindergarten, preschool, screenings, graduation. And we are aligned with the Regent schools for spring break. and they're recommending that most of the Kansas schools align with those also. And this has been looked over by teachers, by athletics, administration, and everyone's supportive.
And another big change was the full day.
Homecoming is a full day that Friday. High school will do their own thing, and it is what it is. So there's no
No
controversy for half-day homecoming.
So,
So everyone should be pleased, excited, happy.
Well, I think that it's a further discussion. I mean, I feel like we've talked about homecoming a lot, but I feel like nothing's really happened as far as planning to change it.
Well,
I mean, the
that-
full days have changed, but like I think that in prior meetings, we've spent a lot of time on multiple different dates talking about putting a committee together and talked about.
And that's separate from this calendar.
Right, but yeah, but this is a
I,
good step
I
in the
think
right
the
direction.
options, I think the options are open,
Or what?
open to.
Open options, yeah.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, I think the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the comments, my understanding, were more about not whether it's half day or full day, but the engagement of the community and the younger children in the homecoming activities.
But the,
Or the parade, I
but the
guess.
full day helps.
Helps with that. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so then the discussion
Of
at some
homecoming is
point
separate.
is gonna happen, or there's intent to have that discussion about what that might look like, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my opinion, yes.
Any other discussion regarding the 2021-22 calendar? If not, I entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the 2021-22 calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried unanimously. All right, this gets down to the resolution for adoption of refinance. I think Dustin clearly articulated kind of the plan there. I don't think it's part of the resolution, but I guess I think we have to provide them the option when they go to the market about what we would like to do. I think probably just keeping the same maturity on our bonds is wise, given the size of I think when he references the 2019, he's talking about the high school and not all that large amount of bonds that are out there, so. Anyway, I mean, I
Is
guess
there any reason we wouldn't wanna save $1.6 million?
No, the other option he had was 1.9. I like that a lot, but I think it's better just to do the one, be happy with 1.6. Don't be
So the
greedy.
1.9 is if you just prepay a year, is that right?
Right, but then it puts our cash balances in a lower position and doesn't give us as much flexibility down the road.
Got it.
And this just keeps everything the
Balanced.
same maturity as it is already. It's taking 3 issues and putting them into one and making us a pretty healthy savings, hopefully.
Yeah, you're the expert on this, but it's not like your home mortgage where if you wanted to pay more per year, you could,
You
but
can't.
this is.
Well, there's prepayment
Yeah, this is.
limit,
more
it's
complex
a
than
different
what
world
we're
than your home, yeah.
Yeah.
Some things have a different call, you can't do anything until a call date, I think what he's buying us time for is when the option comes up on the high school debt,
Okay.
what would we wanna do there with that?
Which is 5 years,
Yeah.
or 4 days.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
So, quick question, so Dustin has been a tremendous resource for us, and I wanna make sure that we maintain that, because he brings a skill set that
none of
Jim
us
might
have,
kinda
I don't
none of the rest of us
I
have.
could BS it, but I don't have anything.
But at the same time, they make money doing this, and that's great. Are we comfortable that we're getting the right deal from them as opposed to other people that do the same thing? Cause it's a lot of money.
I mean, I guess, I think when we interviewed for the other one, I think the fees were pretty much the same, and I know that company actually didn't exist now, it got bought out by a larger company, but, I mean, with the value he provides, and that savings that's reported on there, that's net
Net
of
of
their
any
commission.
fees.
So that's pure to us.
You know, Justin, we talked about this, but it just feels like Dustin's part of our team.
Well,
You know, and
no question.
And that's just incredible.
We never got this type of service
No.
before.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I think he's A plus.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's all, I agree, I think that's an awesome question to ask, just to continually just say, are we happy? And I think that's it.
He's very accessible for me. I mean, just a text and he calls me within the hour. I love it.
That's my impression as well. I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, I can't say that someone else is in charge of, I keep kicking out all my fraction of a percent, but I think we're getting our money's worth with these guys. Anyway, guess I would move that we approve the resolution listed in 5.4. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. All right, with that, we do need, I believe, to go into a short executive session.
How long?
I'd say,
You need 5 or 10 minutes?
I say 10's the most, just to answer everybody's questions.
With one 5-minute extension at least.
I don't want to,
Oh, I was gonna say.
Jim's in a hurry.
All right, I make a motion to move into a 10-minute executive session to discuss non-elected personal matters.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Oh, I'm holding 10 minutes. call back into session. From executive session, I guess I would move that we extend the contracts for Mr. Farrar,
Ashley Ulrich.
Ashley, Cody,
Casey,
Casey, Mr. Mann,
Callista Blazo,
Clusta, and
Chris Henry.
Mr. Henry for 1 year,
And
and Tanya,
Tanya.
sorry. That's the.
That's everybody.
That's the one, all the ones for 1 more year. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. All right, discussion for, any other discussion items for the board, topics to discuss? I think we got the date for the 22nd.
Karen, are you good, still,
I can't,
you can't change the confirmation?
no.
But we will have a supper at 5:30, and then we'll start at 6. And like I said, I don't want Aaron's presentation to dominate that, because I know there's a lot of things that we all internally want to talk about without making it such a late night. But we think it's better to get all done in one night instead of trying to piecemeal this out over, because we don't even know when the next meeting will be with this master planning. That'll all be developed on the 22nd.
Just lock the doors and I'll let everybody out before we're done.
So Aaron's gonna present some stuff, but then DLR, we're gonna.
They're gonna be-
beyond
they
that.
just- they're just-
gonna go beyond that.
No, DLR is just they're gonna listen. And so McCown, they just wanna hear what these projects are, these extra projects to either West or TPAC area are. So they're part of that process, cause DLR put the price list together. And so they'll have, I don't know if it'll be Robin or Amber, but somebody will be there to just listen to Aaron's proposals. And I think McCown Gordon just wants to be part of that team. I don't think any of them have presentations.
But I do want us to have some time to, like, I think like we did a year and a half ago or so, we kind of laid out some strategic goal type things to help, Lauren and Tanya, I guess, focus for the year or so. So some discussion in that area, or kind of maybe we can touch back on what we did at that meeting. And that is it. If that's everything, we will, meeting adjourned.